Hey everybody, this is Elijah, and today we're going to be talking about propaganda and stereotypes and the way that these play a role in the story that we're reading, which is The Boy on the Wooden Box, and the historical context in which the story is based, which is, of course, World War II. So the first scene I want to focus on for this is the assault scene that takes place on pages 55 through 57, which is where the two Gestapo policemen break into the Leeson apartment and assault Leon's father, asking him to disclose the location of his hidden money and jewels. And all this despite the fact that one can plainly see from the size of their apartment and the poor furnishings they have that they're definitely not rich. They definitely don't have hidden money. So why do the Nazis insist on this notion of the Jews having hidden money somewhere in their apartment? Well, Leon actually gives us the answer when he says on page 56 that they, referring to the Nazis, just followed their racist ideology that all Jews hoarded wealth. And he's talking here about a characteristic of the Jewish stereotype, which is something that the Nazis used during World War II and leading up to World War II. And we're going to talk about what the characteristics of the stereotype are, how the Nazis propagated the stereotypes, and what the effect of that was. And we're going to be looking at how these effects sort of show up in the story. So the characteristics of the Jew, according to the Nazi propaganda, were extremely money hoarding and greedy, which is what we see in this scene here. This characteristic we see represented. Also, it's thought that they were sneaking and conniving, and that they were sort of conspiring with each other to plot the downfall of the white race and European civilization at large. In this way, the Nazis sort of saw them as a parasite or a pest that needed to be exterminated or gotten rid of, which was, of course, the goal of the Holocaust. And above all, the Jews were sort of just another race that was inferior to the Aryan race, which is the master race of people with white skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes that the Nazis held up as the ideal man, the ideal race. The Nazis had several ways of transmitting these stereotypes, sort of getting them out to the public. The first being posters and caricatures, which Leon talks about in the story as showing up on doors around the city, and they show Jewish people as having large noses and wearing sort of traditional attire and all these things, which confuses him, and rightly so. And that's what we see here on these two things I've included here. You can definitely see the big nose. You've got the traditional dress here. You've got the money in the hands. And this happened actually as a promotional poster for a movie that was funded by the Nazis. And this is a postage stamp. And the text on this, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, says who is responsible or who is to blame for the war, referring, of course, to World War II. So the second way that they promoted their anti-Semitism was through films, which, like I said, this is a promotional poster for a film called The Eternal Jew. That's the English title. That toured through Europe and basically depicted the narrative of Jews orchestrating the deterioration or the degeneration of European civilization. And then the last one is rhetoric, which is basically refers to the way that Nazis and Nazi leaders talked about Jews in a way that reinforced the stereotypes that already existed even before the Nazis, in fact, all across Europe. So what are the effects of this propaganda? Well, there's a lot, actually. The first being the alienation of the targeted group. The targeted group here is, of course, the Jewish people, and we definitely see this alienation in the story. The second is people's worldview is altered. These propaganda posters and films and things are extremely powerful, and as we're going to see here in just a moment, they really have the power to change people's opinions, change people's entire understanding of their world around them. And third, the propaganda really energizes public sentiment towards the goal of the propaganda, whatever that may be. And in this way, it can even justify actions that the government is taking, even if they are morally wrong, even if they're morally, extremely reprehensible, as we have in the case of Nazi Germany and especially the Holocaust, which a lot of people, even those who knew what was going on in the concentration camps, they sort of looked the other way on that. So that just shows the power that these propaganda methods can really have. And now we're going to look at how these effects show up in the novel, in the part that we've read so far. So the first is the change in Leon's friends. So Leon has a number of Gentile, which just means non-Jewish, friends at the beginning when he first moves to Krakow with his family. They sort of talked about spending all day riding on the trains for free and watching plays and things around the city, just sort of typical young boy stuff. And after these propaganda posters start going up when the Nazis invade Krakow, we start to see his friends start to spend less and less time with him before eventually declaring that they're not ever going to be seen with another Jew again. And that leads to this other part, which is average people, normal people, just normal citizens turned hateful and turned bigoted towards Jews. And we see that with the citizens of Krakow who loot the abandoned Jewish apartments, which of course leads to the assault on Leon's father. We also see people turning a blind eye to the Nazi atrocities. We see this in the novel when Leon marches out of the ghetto, and he is astounded to see that the city life hasn't really changed in his absence, and that people are just sort of going about their daily routine without even so much as glancing at the Jews being marched out of the camp. No one seems to really care about that, about what's been going on in the ghetto, what's been going on to the Jewish people in general, which really shows the power of the Nazi propaganda, that you can turn a city that had a very sizable Jewish population at once to be sort of just turned into people who totally ignore basic degradation of basic human rights.